So then you feel pretty confident that we are not out of the woods, but definitely we're not looking at a total disaster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are not seeing indications on our modeling that this is going to be a significant water level event in the ocean that would make a tsunami. Our modeling suggests that we're not going to see destructive waves over 30 centimeters above tide, which is good. Tsunamis at high tide, of course, can be worse. We're not expecting a problem in this case. And those are levels that if we were seeing something like that, we would have a much different situation on our hands, and that's just not the case. The good news is that smaller earthquakes, while 7 is not necessarily small, for tsunami it is, and that it's the lower end of our procedures for alerts, and we're just not expecting this to have a significant impact locally for you in California or anywhere across the U.S. West Coast or Canada.
So you're looking at possibly some flooding, or just it should be pretty normal for us?
Well, and that's a really good point. I'm sorry, we're still getting alerts here in the center here, probably from aftershocks. In this type of situation, tsunami advisories would be the next alert level down from a warning. And when we're talking about advisory levels, we're really focused on coastal impacts, strong and unusual currents that can last for days after the initial earthquake. And so that's what I'd be watching for at this point. Since we're not looking at significant inundation or flooding on land from the ocean, there still could be some weird, unusual, and stronger currents than what you're typically used to in bays and harbors, or if you've got swimming plans along the beach. Keep that in mind. Pay really close attention to what your local community officials are saying about the risk level, because at this point they're going to have the best information about what the local risks are following an event like this.
And from what I want to ask you at this point, kind of what you been able to see, how long do you all continue to monitor this? Is it once we get to a certain point we feel like, okay, it's safe to kind of like back off of how closely we're monitoring this? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, typically when we are measuring tsunami water impacts at the coast, we'll kind of look at that in 3-hour segments and wait for those water levels to come down before our threshold. So 30 centimeters would be our warning level threshold, and below that, it can take a day or so for things to really settle out in some cases. This is not one of those larger cases, so it's very possible that some local bays, you know, I'll just throw out a name here, but without any specific information yet. The places like Santa Cruz Harbor sometimes have trouble with this. And so we'll keep an eye on places like that, places where we have coastal observations and connections with our harbor masters and the Coast Guard, to make sure that we're hearing about any local impacts and things like that. And we have a great team on the ground there with their local forecast office in Monterey. They are experts at this, and they know all the partners and pass on that information to us so that we have a good picture about what happened as we go. But right now we're not getting that, which is really good news, because this does look like a non-destructive, very low-end type of event that pushed us into a procedural warning, and out of abundance of caution and maybe some local landslides near the coast, it doesn't look like we're having that problem right now, but we're continuing to keep an eye on it.
And we're really fortunate too, Dave, that this is happening on a bright blue sky day, and we're not talking about stormy weather that's adding to, you know, the difficulty of people moving into safer areas or adding to any flooding concerns. So we will remind you, Dave Snyder is the National Weather Service Tsunami Warning Coordinator. So thank you for doing what you do and for being ready to go, because we definitely have a lot of folks along our coastline.
Yeah, we're privileged to serve, and I look forward to helping you guys anytime. Thank you for keeping your community safe, guys.
All right,
thank you, Dave. Take care.
All right, of course, that is some good news when you hear that, those words. Good news that we're hearing that, but still on the lookout. We are still under that tsunami warning. I want to toss things over to Mike and Noah. I know, Mike, you've been monitoring. We were talking about BART has shut down. They were monitoring the tracks there as well as the tube.
Yeah, an important note that BART's system is on the tracks, but an important part linking both sides of the bay is the Transbay Tube. It is anchored, but it is movable. So anytime there would potentially be a big water event, there could be a potential for movement of that tube. And I believe that is why BART has stopped service until further notice. They're hearing that from Dave Snyder over at the Tsunami Warning. He's Tsunami Warning Coordinator. That's great news that it doesn't sound like it's going to be as big of an event as we had talked about. And so we may be easing off. But right now, the Transbay Tube is still stopped for BART service. And so linking the two sides of the bay has to go over the Bay Bridge Anchorage, which has reported no problems whatsoever. You have Muni, which is taking up part of the service, Daly City and the Embarcadero areas, and then south of there, Samtrans is providing free service as well. And this is going to stay in place until the BART alert notifies us anything otherwise for the Transbay tube. Keep that in mind. Now, in Berkeley's advisory, they had said that you should evacuate the area. They may change that as soon as we get information from the Tsunami Warning Center as well. But they were advising I-80. Let me emphasize that this portion of the East Shore Freeway goes right up to the water's edge. So if there was a significant event, that water could potentially creep onto the freeway. So they were warning folks to stay off of I-80. And we did see a lot of slowing as folks, I think, tried to scramble away from the area. Level heads, very important at this time as folks get around to movement and as they react. I know we had heard advisements that people take fewer vehicles, carpool if you can, take only what you have to. And now that things are restoring potentially back to an earlier situation, maybe people can start heading back. Again, wait till your community gives that advisory or that update. But if you do, make sure you advise that same, you take that same warning and just keep level heads through the area. We're looking along the waters area, around the Oakland area, the estuaries there. We see some slower drives. Saw a lot of slowing. Pacifica heading north up to Sharp Park, and then here heading south to 92 through Half Moon Bay. Folks were heading away from the coast. I just got word, thank you, Adrian, from our producers saying that BART is back to normal operations, and so that should relieve a lot of the worry and a lot of that Transbay service that was taken up by the buses. Good news, BART should be restoring back to normal, and we do have this traffic flow away from the beach, but again, we should be getting an update from that, from the earlier evacuation orders. A reminder again, showing you the distance. I wanted to show folks that from the San Francisco Bay Area, it's about 200 miles up to Eureka, where we did get a call from Dave, who felt it very strongly near the area where there was the epicenter of the original quake just off the coast. So that was a significant distance, and since that time, in the last hour, we've got a lot of updates, including Chris and Marcus. You guys just talked to Dave Snyder over there from the Tsunami Warning Coordinator. So that's, I think, better news as far as the situation of what we're looking at potentially coming toward us. But back over to you.
Anytime you hear good news, that's good news. And also good to hear BART is up and running again. We know that that's a good thing. So take a look at this. So we are showing some video across the Bay Area. Mike showed you just how far the epicenter was from that earthquake that hit about a little more than an hour ago. This is in Carmichael, Sacramento County. And first thing when I first moved here, a lot of people said, if you feel an earthquake, you think there was an earthquake, go near a pool. You can see the water shaking. And you can see right here, this is certainly what the people who live in this home were doing. And you can see that water just swaying there. So just show you the distance, but how strong that earthquake was.
Absolutely. A little closer to the epicenter. This is video from Chico, and you can see the pool in the distance there. A little nervous chatter there in the background. We have, let's see, the animals always seem to know that there's something amiss when we have a big earthquake like this one. Definitely Chico close enough to have felt it. Here's another pool out of the Chico area, and you can see that the water is moving there, sloshing over the side and going into the ground. And it does look like it's a lip, so it's not one of those infinity pools where it's kind of flat. That water definitely reaching up a couple inches to go over the side of the pool. And
we have another one for you right here. This is in Oakland. You can see the swaying there of the blinds. Certainly, when something like this happens, you know, any movement, you can kind of tell, like, okay, wait, did I just feel that shaking? You look to objects that are kind of hanging, and that's what you see. So we're seeing this in Oakland. Everyone seems to be okay in all these videos that we're showing you here, so no reports of anyone injured or any major damage that we're getting from the videos that we're showing you. But this is another shot from Oakland where you saw those blinds shaking. But this all happened about 10:44 today when we got the earthquake. It was at the epicenter north of us, about 260 so miles. And that was a very strong earthquake.
Yes, so we did get some earthquake warnings farther north, but definitely around the Bay Area, we got the tsunami warning alerts on our phones. One person who probably got that is Chrissy Smith. She's our reporter. She's there in San Francisco along the coast side. Chrissy, did you get the alert, and what'd you do?
Well, we definitely did get the alert. We were actually on a different story over at the Hall of Justice, and you could just hear that tone going off on a number of phones. But we didn't feel any shaking at all, but we definitely got the alert. And soon after that, we started heading over here where we are now. This is Ocean Beach, and you can see what it looks like right now. On our way here, we noticed that the gates on the Great Highway look like they're being closed at Lincoln. Southbound lanes were having to turn and head east away from the water. We also saw a number of fire trucks that were in the area, and it looks like more are here. Of course, that tsunami warning is in effect. People being told to stay out of the water, away from beaches and piers, and get to higher ground. Again, we were across town but didn't feel anything, but did get that alert. We made our way over here. We haven't seen an impact at the shore. Of course, it's still early, but wanted to mention that the San Francisco Zoo had posted on X earlier today that the zoo had closed due to the tsunami warning, and guests were evacuated, animals secure, and staff moved to higher ground. So at this point, the beach itself, we're hearing that that tsunami warning has been canceled. We're just getting that news in. But again, you can see what Ocean Beach looks like right now, just pretty empty at this point. And there are some people milling around, but they're kind of on the sidewalk. We're up near the Cliff House, so sort of a higher point, just kind of keeping an eye on things. But again, we're hearing that tsunami warning has been canceled, so that is certainly a development out here. Reporting live in San Francisco, Christy Smith, NBC Bay Area News.
All right, thank you very much, Christy. We are live right now. We are starting this midday with a tsunami warning that is fortunately now canceled. We are out of the danger zone. We just saw Christy Smith in San Francisco. It's a good thing it was canceled because people did not get away from the water.
Yeah, bring you up to date of what we're talking about here. So around 10:44 this morning, there was a 7.0 earthquake off the coast of California, up north of us, about 260 miles. And you can see right here from our seismograph, you can see just the strength of that earthquake. That caused a tsunami warning along the coast of California. We're talking about from the north up there to Eureka and that area all the way down. We have south to Davenport. So you're talking about a large stretch of the coast of California under that tsunami warning. That tsunami warning has been called off as of just a few moments ago, bringing that information to you. But as you can see, we have that tsunami warning called off for the coast of California.
Now, while a 7.0 earthquake is really strong when it hits in a populated land area, when it happens off the coast, we are told by the National Weather Service's tsunami warning coordinator that a 7.0 is not that strong, that it's kind of on the lower end of what triggers a tsunami. So out of an abundance of caution, they did issue that tsunami warning. You're looking live here at the wharf in Santa Cruz right now, where people are gathering, and the good news now is that the danger has receded. We were expecting to see the impact of the tsunami wave in San Francisco around 12:10, so a little later than that. In Santa Cruz County, Davenport was the southernmost part for that tsunami warning area.
And the thing about it, it was just certainly jarring for a lot of people who got that alert on their cell phone this morning. Certainly a scary situation, but it was some relief there when we talked to Dave over at the National Weather Service Tsunami Warning Center. He said there's some good news. It doesn't seem like it's as bad as it could have been. When you talk about the strength of an earthquake to cause a tsunami, he said a 7.0 really is at the lower end of that. Now, meteorologist Carrie Hall, of course, been monitoring this. Carrie, you've been following like where these earthquakes lie on the fault lines across the Bay Area. And you said the earthquakes that we saw today were on two different fault lines?
Yeah, that was the one that was farther inland up around Cobb County, or around Cobb in parts of the North Bay. And then we had these that were off the coast of Humboldt County. All of this at that big subduction zone, and where we see the San Andreas Fault kind of split into three plates where it all connects with the Pacific rim, the Pacific coast, I should say. As we take a look at how many reports we've received. As of now, we've gotten 25 reports of earthquakes, many of them very minor, but this is typical. Even after you do get a large shaking there, we start to see those aftershocks happening after that. And the yellow circles indicate those initial reports of those earthquakes that were measured, the 7.0 that was off the coast, and then also the 6.0 that was around the Fortuna area and just south of Eureka. So we're still getting hearing some of those aftershocks, but they are minor. That's a good thing as well as we continue to watch out for that possibility of any more aftershocks that will continue. The tsunami warning, as we mentioned, has been allowed to expire, so this is no longer the case on the map, and people who are out and about were hearing about that tsunami warning that was canceled, which is good news. And perhaps it was, as Dave described, how those plates are meeting up underwater that did not cause that major rise that we see with tsunamis. But this, of course, was a good practice run, a good reminder that tsunamis are very possible here in the Bay Area. It's because of the earthquake that happens underwater that forces that water to rise and may get even higher as it approaches more shallow land and causes the flooding. So we did see where Christy was, that people were still out there, still in the water, still surfing, still observing. And sometimes that's the case. People just want to see what's happening out there. But of course, as we continue to monitor the potential of more of these aftershocks and the earthquake that initially happened a little more than an hour ago, that's giving us all that reminder that we need to always be prepared for the possibility of something larger happening. Back to you.
It's so interesting to hear from the tsunami warning coordinator that it's when the motion is like this, which is what we had today, it doesn't create the same dynamic water movement as when it goes up and down. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so we want to go to Valina Jones. She's over at the Berkeley Marina for us. Now, Valina, Berkeley was one of those areas we saw that they had some evacuation warnings there, West Berkeley, that is. Have you heard any word about that, and what's going on where you are?
Well, Marcus, those evacuations haven't, I mean, they're still going on right now. We know that that warning has stopped, but we're now not seeing anyone. If you can take a look, we are a little far away from the Berkeley Marina, and that's because we weren't allowed to get onto Frontage Road to go into the Berkeley Marina. When we got here, maybe just about 20 minutes ago, we saw many cars coming from the Berkeley Marina out further towards the freeway because everyone was being evacuated out from that direction. No one was allowed in. There was a lot of traffic around this area, but it's pretty calm. The area that we are in right now, again, just a little far away from the Berkeley Marina, but it's in our sight, is actually a staging area right now for the fire department as well as Berkeley Police Department. They have been here and kind of going over what to expect before we knew that that warning was going to cease to exist. But right here is pretty calm. You can see the waters are pretty calm, but definitely a heavy police presence in this area. A lot of people leaving this area because of those evacuation warnings. We're hoping to eventually pretty soon here be able to get back into that area and go towards that marina here in Berkeley to talk to some of the people to see what this was like. We'll see how many people actually come back and how long it takes to, you know, get this information to them that they can actually return back to this area. But evacuations were widespread here in West Berkeley, all along the waterfront as well as on University and all the way towards I-80. So definitely a lot of people trying to leave this area in anticipation of that tsunami warning.
Well, it's good that they were heading in the opposite direction, that they were trying to leave. So we did hear about these evacuation orders for West Berkeley. We also got an evacuation order for Fremont. We expect that that might be changing now that the tsunami warning has been allowed to extend.
West of 880 in Fremont.
Right, west of 880 in Fremont because of the water levels there. So when that changes, or if that changes, we will let you know. So what we're looking at here live this morning is, of course, the marina. You see all those boats there. They are nice and still. And
what we'd like to see right now. Yeah, we're all definitely bringing you the full information of what's going on here. So around 10:44 this morning, that was that 7.0 earthquake north of us, about 260 miles north of us. That triggered a tsunami warning. The good news about that warning has been canceled, and we're getting no words of any severe damage or anything from that earthquake that was off the coast. But then we did hear of a lot of other different earthquakes that we saw in that same area.
And Carrie was talking about that. This is a very seismically active area there. We also heard that from the USGS when we checked in with them just about a half hour ago. There are 3 different plates that are in motion that connect there in that area. So there's a lot of seismic activity. It happens that this one happened to be kind of a biggie, a 7.0, which on land would be tremendous, but which we understand from the tsunami warning coordinator isn't really big enough to create a really big destructive tsunami. So after watching the water levels there, after watching the data coming from the buoys that are out in the ocean, watching the information coming from the sensors along the coastline, they did allow that warning to now expire.
Okay, so we want to give you a visual as well as audio of what was happening in Berkeley. These are the sirens that went off earlier. Take a listen to this. Okay, so this is what people heard today. I mean, a lot of you may have heard it on your cell phone when you got the alert from the National Weather Service. This is when the tsunami warning went into effect throughout the coast of California, as far north as Eureka in that area, all the way down to Davenport. That tsunami warning has been canceled, but the source, of course, there are still some evacuation orders that we haven't heard have been lifted just yet in Berkeley as well as Fremont. But we can tell you that BART now is in full service. They did halt service for just a moment, as well as the Transbay Tube. But we can tell you BART service is now back operating as it would be.
Yeah, and operations at SFO seem to be completely unimpacted. There were no flights that were delayed or canceled because of that. Scott McGrew was checking on that for us earlier this morning. We can tell you that the San Francisco Zoo did cancel and close for the day. So you're seeing those planes moving along there at SFO at the airport, and you know the tsunami warning was really a large swath of coastline. It went from the Oregon border all the way down to Davenport in Santa Cruz County. But the good news is now that we don't expect to see widespread damage because of any wave activity.
And you know, hear from a lot of people, they think, you know, okay, tsunami, how long do I have to I can go back home safely? And the thing that Dave was saying, Dave is over at the National Weather Service Tsunami Warning Center. He said what they will do, even though this warning has been called off, for every 3 hours, they will continue to monitor what's going on there just to make sure. And that could last up to a day. So we could see it this time tomorrow. They're still looking and monitoring that area. But what you're looking at right now is what we like to see, especially in a situation like this. Things are pretty calm out there, but you do see where that cautionary tape has been roped off, keeping people away from the beach areas. We've seen that from Santa Cruz. We've seen that from Pacifica. We've seen that up and down the coast, that police officers have been over in those areas to remove people or exit people from the beach areas just as a precaution to be safe. When that tsunami warning went into effect, people reacted.
Oh, yes.
And that's the good thing about it. You know, we always wonder, like, are the services that keep us safe and keep us alert, are they working? Well, things went off. We heard many of those alarms go off, and on our phones, in our station, we got it from the Shake Alert. I got that as well. Yes. I know we've been monitoring those. So the thing about it is, things that should have happened in a situation like this happened.
That is very good news. And we just also got word from Fremont Police. They have now called off the evacuation order. So if you have loved ones in Fremont or you are in Fremont, you are now in the clear. You can stay home or go back home, and you will be okay. We're waiting to hear about the evacuation orders for the areas of West Berkeley as well. And again, the warning was allowed to expire just a few minutes before the noontime hour.
All right, I want to go back to Scott from Arcata. Scott, so you felt a little something. You said you and your family, where you are, you're all safe. But certainly, I think you were at work when this first happened?
Yeah, I was down in the tsunami zone, is where my office is. So I went back to my house on the hill. And we're still seeing effects right now. There's still stuff going on in our Humboldt Bay over here.
Right, that's what I was going to say. You said from your bay, things looked a little different where they wouldn't normally look. So tell me what you've been seeing there, and has it changed since the last time we spoke?
Yes, significantly. I found out from someone who came from the peninsula that it was high tide when they left. And so so the whole bay was full. From where I'm looking at the bay, the whole bay is shiny. And then the whole bay went to mud flats, and then the whole bay almost turned back to shiny again. So I figured, oh, cool, we're all done. And now, in the last 5 minutes, the whole bay is almost drained out again. So that is a lot of water to be moving that fast. The tide takes a really long time to change. So that's, I don't know how many square miles the Humboldt Bay is, but it's a lot of water.
What
just
about
disappeared in 5 minutes?
Local police or fire? Do you see them in that area? Have they been going around or even alerting people in that area by any chance?
There's a lot of people that came up the hill, and I see the people are starting to come back down the hill now. So I think that people are hearing that the tsunami warning is over. But from where I'm standing, I wouldn't go back down there because I can see the whole bay is emptying out of all of its water. And I have a friend who's a seaman, and he said that the water can go in and out several times.
Yeah.
The water can change several times before a tsunami hits. And so, because I was telling our thread of friends, hey, it looks like the water's coming back. We're probably cool. And he said, no, not yet. And then here it goes. The water disappeared again. So
that's interesting. As somebody who lives near a coastline, it's good to know that you are paying attention to these things and you kind of know how to read the big picture. Relief, I would imagine, to hear that the warning, though, is expired.
I don't know if it is up here. I just been hearing it from you guys, but you're a lot further south than we are.
Right.
You're a lot further away from it. It happened right out from us, basically just a little south of us.
Okay.
Well, we actually have the National Weather Service Tsunami Warning Center on the phone, and they said things are looking okay. When you hear that, does it provide any level of a sigh of relief?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to hear that. That sounds fantastic.
Well, we're glad to be able to pass that along to you. So you can rest just a little bit more, but keep your eye out of what's going on over there, because you've been good eyes for us here as well.
I think Scott's going to have a hard time falling asleep tonight. Sorry about that, Scott.
We'll just watch the day slosh back and forth a little. It'll be all right.
All right.
Well, glad to hear you're okay.
Yeah, Scott there in Arcata for us. Thank you so much, Scott.
All right, so meteorologist Carrie Hall has been tracking all of this activity. And Carrie, when we hear about one big one, we expect to hear others after that. And we know that usually there are fewer and far between. So are we seeing that point at this point?
Yeah, so that's always the thing that we watch for. Was this a foreshock, or are we going to see our aftershocks? And within the past hour and 15, well, we're at hour and a half right now, we've had 32 reports of those earthquakes happening mostly off the coast. So that may be another thing that's causing that water to slosh back and forth that Scott was seeing up there in Arcata. We're still going to see the earth moving and under the water as well. So that could still create some waves up in that area. But as far as a larger threat of a tsunami, we're not expecting that at this point. And hopefully things do start to quiet down and we see more of these little small red dots. Those are the smaller earthquakes that have been measured in the last hour. The larger yellow circles are the big earthquakes that initially happened, and it was a 7.0, which is significant. But as we were learning that with it happening underwater, that's kind of on the lower end of a stronger earthquake. But as we mentioned before, if it was over land, that would cause some significant damage. A 7.0 would be major, causing billions of dollars in damage and loss of life. And we only see about 18 of those on Earth every year. So that would have been very significant. And when we take a look at the San Andreas Fault and what that means for us here in the Bay Area, we know that that is the major fault that goes through parts of the Santa Cruz Mountains and along the coast all the way up farther north. And it also splits into part of the large Pacific Plate. And there's the three major faults that happen just north of the San Andreas Fault. The largest earthquake that we had here in the Bay Area, of course, that we all hear about very often, is the 1906 7.9 magnitude earthquake. So that caused so much shaking that it crumbled a lot of buildings and caused a lot of casualties as well, nearly $400 million in property damage at that time. So this is that reminder that if you do feel some shaking, drop, cover, and hold. And then you also want to go around and check for the possibility possibility of any rupturing gas lines that may produce some gas leaks. And then fires also may start after you have a major earthquake. And then the liquefaction is basically where parts of the land, especially the marshy land, just becomes water. So earthquake reminders now that we are starting to feel that we're in the clear. We've heard people say they go outside, and the advice is really don't run out of the building, but you do want to make sure that you're covered for that potential of falling debris. That's the top hazard during the middle of the shaking. The interior walls are best, and hallways are not always the safest. You want to make sure that you're away from windows, you're under a desk or a table, and those aftershocks will continue. So if you do feel anything, drop, cover, and hold. And let me tell you, that Shake Alert app was really a great tool, especially with this. We saw it work this time around, which is one of those things that we have that can give you farther down the line how much time you can expect before you start to feel some shaking. But if you're right there near the epicenter, you may not have much of a heads up. But yeah, this was all those great reminders that we are in an area that is very seismically active, and the big ones can happen at any point here. So we continue to watch out for those dangers. Chris and Marcus.
All right, thank you, Carrie. We have some video here of Highway 92. There you can see this is evacuation process for a lot of folks over in Half Moon Bay. And looks smooth there, but of course people are trying to get out of Dodge. Of course, we were telling people, that tsunami warning. We were asking, how soon should people go? We see this one, they said, look, leave now, get what you need and evacuate that area. And this was asking people to get at least a mile away from the coast. What about 100 feet elevation?
Yeah, and you've been there to the pumpkin patches and to the, the beach there in Half Moon Bay. That is a narrow one-way road, so that had to be really, really nerve-wracking. It's good to see that people were trying to get out. I do want to mention that we have evacuation orders now canceled. Give you an update here. We talked about Fremont canceling their evacuation orders. West Berkeley also canceled their evacuation orders, along with Sonoma, Marin, San Mateo, and San Francisco. So you are now safe to go home and maybe get back down to any level lower than 100 feet. We have some videos that did show some of the movement. This one is out of Carmichael in Sacramento County, just east of Sacramento, and you can see that water sloshing around the pool. Marcus was saying that, when you first moved here,
that's what they told me.
That's how you
if
gauge
you think
an
you felt something, go look at a pool, and you can see the water moving back and forth, and there was an earthquake. We also have some more video for you. This is in Chico that we have, and there's another pool there. Of course, this is something that people know, and they go out and look at it. I think in this same video, you're going to see the dog wandering around. And those are the things, another one from Chico that we have as well. So, the thing about it is you think about where this was, Eureka over in that area, and this is in Chico, not as far, but then we saw some movement over in the Sacramento County area. We saw even some movement in Oakland. So that's certainly something to just be mindful of when you see. This is the video I was talking about from Oakland. You can see the blinds moving there.
This was higher up. This is about the 7th floor of the Alameda County District Attorney's Office where this video came from. So you can see that there's a little bit more movement up higher off the ground level. So again, we're glad that everybody is okay, and that seems to be the worst of what we felt here in the Bay Area. We do also want to show you this. Beautiful picture, Ocean Beach there. Now it feels a lot different that the warning has expired. Earlier today, we just didn't know if this was going to be the worst of it or the best of it. So we are still seeing some wave activity, as Scott up in Arcata mentioned, up in Humboldt County, seeing some of the movement of the ocean. We expect to feel more of that as we get those aftershocks.
Yeah, but certainly those waves look a lot different knowing
it feels much better. I will say that.
We do have Damian Trujillo for us right now. He's over in Half Moon Bay, I believe.
Well, we're trying to get there. We were stopped over at Highway 35. The sheriff's office had closed off the westbound traffic into Half Moon Bay to allow all the eastbound traffic to get out of town. And so just about 5 minutes ago, they reopened westbound 92, but still tons of traffic trying to leave the Half Moon Bay area, even though that warning has been called off. We did run into people over on the summit off of Highway 35 who said as soon as they got the alert on their phone, they got out of Half Moon Bay and just waited it out and higher ground, and so they just wanted to be safe. But now that they've reopened the westbound lanes, the danger appears to be over, and so now they are driving back to their homes in Half Moon Bay. But still, we're approaching the nurseries that we're all familiar with in Half Moon Bay, and the traffic is still flowing eastbound. People still trying to get out of town.
All right, Damien Trujillo, thank you so much. Hey, I want to get over to Mike Inoue because, Mike, you got some new information for us?
Well, Damien's talking about the flow on Highway 92. I was checking out the traffic volume, and it held about the same as when folks were evacuating the area. Now that we've gotten the okay, I thought maybe we might see a change in traffic flow. The volume Damien's talking about, people still going westbound, looks like it's easing up a little bit, but we still have a lot of traffic heading south. Then I noticed this pop up of an incident. I thought maybe I'd warn folks about paying attention as you return back to where you were before the evacuation area, but it just says that Highway 1 has been closed around Coronado. I'm going to say it's probably traffic control because of what Damien's talking about. He encountered traffic control over in this area. You see all the congestion, Highway 35 and 92, that intersection there, major interchange as you're coming away from 280 or heading toward that point. Highway 1, this is right around Surfers Cove. There's going to be a lot of folks traveling onto and off the roadway. If they went to the coast, perhaps to see what was going on, they may be pulling out of that parking area as well. So there may be temporary traffic control through that area. Just keep that in mind. Here's Highway 1, 92 is your only access through this portion of the peninsula. Then farther north, we see a lot of slowing heading north from Pacific up toward Sharp Park. Sharp Park there will be another access from Highway 1 over to 280. Folks know that because if you had to get rerouted during Devil's Slide days, you know about that alternate to Highway 92. But again, these areas along the coast are still seeing a lot of traffic heading away from the coast, although those evacuations for San Mateo County have been cleared out. We're looking at the traffic flow, and just a note for you folks to watch out for those local authorities who may still be doing traffic control for the areas. Back to you.
Always good to know. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we can take a deep sigh of relief right now because though we all got those really loud alerts on our phones about a tsunami warning all the way down to the Santa Cruz coastline, we can tell you that it is now expired. It expired about 25 minutes ago or so, and we don't see any major damage. Some ragged nerves maybe after getting those alerts and feeling some of the actual movement of the earth. But the good news is that because this happened so far up north and it happened off the coast, the 7.0 that would have been destructive on land was not big enough to create any major destructive tsunami behavior.
Yeah, and what we learned today is that 7.0 is kind of like at the bottom of the scale when it comes to triggering a tsunami. Certainly could create some activity, but this did not. And a lot of things play a factor in this, in how the shaking is, whether it's up and down or side to side. We learned that. But also, this is also that reminder for you. This is when you need to, if you haven't already done so, get that to-go emergency bag ready. This is something